They say people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. What they don't tell you is what happens when someone starts throwing them anyway, and you realize you've been living in a house made entirely of lies. My name is Jonathan Reed, and I used to think I had the perfect life. Keyword, used to. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm a commercial contractor, 45 years old, with calloused hands and a back that creaks when I get out of bed. Nothing glamorous about it, but I built a solid business from nothing. Reed Construction has put up half the strip malls in Millbrook, Connecticut, and every job site knows my voice before they see my face. I'm the guy who shows up at 6 a.m. with coffee and gets things done while everyone else is still figuring out which end of the hammer to hold. 10 years ago, I married Olivia Chen Reed, a woman so beautiful that men would walk into glass doors watching her pass. She was 34, owned a boutique called Threads on Main Street, and had this laugh that could make you forget your own name. I was the luckiest bastard in Millbrook, and I knew it. Our house sits on Elm Street, all glass and steel and modern lines that Olivia picked out. "It's so clean, Jonathan," she'd said, running her manicured fingers along the floor-to-ceiling windows. "So transparent." I should have paid more attention to that word. The first crack appeared 3 months ago. I was in my study, going over blueprints for a new medical complex. When I heard Olivia on the phone in the kitchen, the house's open design meant sound carried, and her voice had this tone I'd never heard before, breathy, almost giggly. "Parker, you're terrible," she was saying. "Jonathan doesn't understand art like you do. He thinks a masterpiece is a perfectly level foundation." Parker Hale. I knew the name. Freelance photographer, moved to Millbrook about 6 months earlier. Olivia had mentioned him a few times, childhood friend from California, needed help getting established, that sort of thing. I'd even thrown some work his way, had him photograph completed projects for our website. "He's so practical," Olivia continued, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Sometimes I wonder what it would be like to be with someone who really sees me, you know?" I set down my pencil very carefully. In construction, you learn to recognize when something's about to collapse. The signs are always there: a crack in the foundation, a beam that's carrying too much weight, a structure that looks solid but is actually hollow inside. That night at dinner, I watched Olivia push her food around her plate, her phone buzzing constantly. "Busy day at the shop?" I asked. She looked up, startled. "What? Oh, yes. Very busy. Sarah's been texting about the new inventory." Her phone buzzed again. The screen lit up, and I caught a glimpse of the name. Parker. Sarah was her business partner, a 40-something woman who treated gossip like an Olympic sport. But Sarah's contact info definitely didn't include heart emojis. "How's Parker settling in?" I asked casually, cutting into my steak. Olivia's fork paused halfway to her mouth. "Parker? Oh, fine, I think. I don't really keep track of him." Another buzz, another glance at her phone. "Didn't you have lunch with him yesterday? I saw his car at Romano's when I drove past." "Did I?" She laughed, but it sounded forced. "I have lunch with lots of people, Jonathan. It's called networking." I nodded and took another bite. In construction, when you find one crack, you start looking for others. They're always there. Over the next few weeks, I started paying attention. Really paying attention. Olivia's late nights at the boutique became more frequent. Her phone was always face down on the table. She started buying new lingerie, expensive stuff that I never saw her wear around me. "Anniversary gift for yourself?" I asked one evening, finding the Victoria's Secret bag in her car. "A woman needs to feel beautiful, Jonathan," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Even if no one else notices." The comment stung, but I let it slide. I was working long hours on the medical complex, coming home tired and dusty. Maybe I had been neglecting her, so I tried harder, brought her flowers, planned date nights, complimented her more. But the distance grew wider. I started finding things. A scarf in my truck that wasn't hers, silk, expensive, with a scent I didn't recognize. A receipt for dinner at the Riverside Inn, a place we'd never been together, dated on a night I was working late. "Honey," I said one morning, holding up the receipt, "did you lose this?" She glanced at it, and I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? "Oh, that. I took Mom there for her birthday. You were at the Henderson job site, remember?" I remembered. But I also remembered calling her mother that night to ask about Olivia's whereabouts, and Gloria saying she hadn't seen her daughter in days. The final piece fell into place 2 weeks ago. I'd forgotten my safety glasses and drove back to the house during lunch. Olivia's car wasn't there, but I heard voices from the backyard. I walked around the side of the house and saw them through the kitchen window. Olivia was pressed against the marble counter, her arms wrapped around a tall man with dark hair. Parker Hale. His hands were in her hair, and they were kissing like teenagers who just discovered what tongues were for. I stood there for maybe 30 seconds, watching my wife of 10 years make out with another man in the kitchen I'd paid for, in the house I'd bought, wearing clothes I'd funded. Then I got back in my truck and drove to work. That night, Olivia asked how my day was. "Fine," I said. "Productive." She smiled and kissed my cheek. "I love you, Jonathan." "Love you too," I replied, and meant it. That was the problem. I could have confronted her then, could have thrown the bastard out, filed for divorce, split everything down the middle, and moved on with my life. But I didn't. See, there's something most people don't understand about construction. Before you can build something new, you have to tear down what's already there. And if you're going to tear something down, you better make sure you do it right the first time. Because some structures, once they fall, can never be rebuilt. I spent the next week making phone calls. Not to lawyers? Not yet. To private investigators. Mike Torino ran a small agency out of Waterbury. We'd gone to high school together, and he owed me a favor from when I'd renovated his office for cost of materials. "You sure you want to go down this road, Johnny?" he asked when I explained the situation. "I'm sure I want the truth," I said. "What I do with it is my business." "Fair enough. Give me 2 weeks." It took him 10 days. The photos were worse than I'd expected. Olivia and Parker at restaurants, hotels, even in his apartment above the camera shop on Maple Street. The timestamps showed they'd been at it for at least 4 months. But the photos weren't the worst part. The worst part was the recorded conversation. Mike had gotten Parker drunk at Murphy's Tavern and recorded him bragging to some local guys about his sugar mama. "She pays for everything." Parker's voice crackled through my phone speaker. "The apartment, the car, even my equipment, and the best part? Her husband's the one actually footing the bill. Guy's so clueless he even hired me to photograph his buildings. I'm literally getting paid to screw his wife." His friends laughed. One of them asked if he felt bad about it. Bad? Why should I feel bad? If he was man enough to keep her satisfied, she wouldn't need me. Besides, have you seen this guy? Total blue-collar bore. Olivia deserves someone who appreciates her assets. More laughter. "How long do you think you can keep it up?" someone asked. "As long as I want. She's talking about leaving him, but I'm not ready for that kind of commitment. Right now, I get all the benefits with none of the responsibility. It's perfect." I listened to that recording 3 times, sitting in my truck outside the job site. By the 3rd time, something had changed inside me. The hurt was still there, but it was wrapped in something harder now, something colder. That evening, Olivia announced that she wanted to plan something special for our anniversary. 10 years, Jonathan. Can you believe it? We should celebrate. I looked at her across the dinner table. This woman I'd loved, provided for, trusted completely. She was already planning the party that would mark the end of our marriage, and she didn't even know it. "That sounds wonderful," I said. "Let's make it a night to remember." She smiled and reached across to squeeze my hand. "I love you so much, honey. You're the best husband a woman could ask for." I squeezed back. "I love you too, Olivia. More than you know." And I did. That was the hell of it. But love, I was learning, wasn't always enough. Sometimes love had to make room for justice. Sometimes the man who built the glass house had to be the one to throw the first stone. Our 10th anniversary party was held at Chez Laurent, the fanciest restaurant in Millbrook. Olivia had insisted on the private dining room, the one with the crystal chandelier and windows overlooking the river. "We should do this right," she'd said while planning it. "Invite everyone who matters to us." Everyone who mattered. That was interesting phrasing, considering half the guest list consisted of people who were about to watch our marriage implode. I arrived early and surveyed the room. 24 people, all dressed in their finest, all expecting to celebrate a decade of marital bliss. Olivia's mother Gloria held court near the windows, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. She'd never liked me, thought her daughter had married beneath her station, but she tolerated me because I kept Olivia in the lifestyle she'd been raised to expect. Sarah Martinez was there with her husband Tom, both of them already working on their second drinks. Sarah ran the boutique with Olivia and knew every piece of gossip in town. Tom owned the hardware store and was one of the few people who actually respected what I did for a living. My own friends were scattered around the room. Mike Torino sat at the bar, nursing a beer and occasionally catching my eye. He was the only person who knew what was coming. My foreman, Dave Patterson, was there with his wife Linda, both of them looking slightly uncomfortable in the fancy surroundings but happy to be included. And then there was Parker Hale. He'd positioned himself near Olivia's end of the table, wearing a black suit that was probably worth more than my truck. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he had that easy smile that I'd once thought was friendly but now recognized as predatory. I watched him lean over to whisper something in Olivia's ear. She laughed and touched his arm, a gesture so casual and intimate that several people noticed. Sarah raised an eyebrow. Gloria frowned. Tom looked confused, but I just smiled and raised my water glass to get everyone's attention. "Before we start dinner," I said, "I want to thank you all for being here. 10 years ago, I married the most beautiful woman in Connecticut, and having you here to celebrate that makes this night perfect." Polite applause. Olivia beamed at me from across the table. "Olivia, would you like to say something?" She stood gracefully, wineglass in hand. She looked stunning in a red dress that I'd bought her for Christmas, her dark hair cascading over one shoulder. 10 years, she began, her voice carrying that musical quality that had first attracted me. 10 wonderful years with a man who has given me everything I could ask for. Jonathan, you've been so generous, so trusting, so accommodating. She paused, and I caught Parker smirking into his wine. You've funded my dreams, supported my business, and never questioned my need for independence. You've given me the freedom to explore who I really am, to discover what I really want out of life. The words hit like physical blows. She was talking about our marriage like it was a business arrangement, praising me for being the perfect mark. So, here's to my wonderful husband, she continued, raising her glass higher, to the man who made all of this possible, to Jonathan, the foundation that everything else is built on. The foundation, the thing you pour concrete over and forget about. Everyone drank, everyone smiled, everyone thought they were witnessing a touching moment between loving spouses. I stood up slowly, reaching into my jacket pocket. Thank you, darling. That was illuminating. I pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers and photographs. I have something for you, too, a little anniversary gift. I walked around the table and placed the envelope in front of her. The room went quiet, everyone expecting some romantic gesture. Olivia looked at the envelope, then at me. Something in my expression must have warned her, because her smile faltered. What is it? Open it. Her hands shook slightly as she lifted the flap. The first thing she saw was a photograph. Her and Parker kissing in his apartment, the timestamp clearly visible in the corner. The color drained from her face. Jonathan, I can... Keep looking. She pulled out more photos. Hotel receipts. Credit card statements showing charges at restaurants I'd never been to. Lingerie I'd never seen her wear. Gifts I'd never received. And then she found the transcript of Parker's recorded conversation. Her eyes moved across the page, and I watched her die inside as she read her lover's words about their perfect arrangement. The room was silent now. Gloria had moved closer, reading over her daughter's shoulder. Sarah was craning her neck, trying to see what had caused such a reaction. Parker had gone very still, his wineglass frozen halfway to his lips. Would you like to read any of it out loud? I asked conversationally. I particularly enjoyed the part where Parker explains how he's literally getting paid to screw my wife. Gloria gasped. Several people started murmuring. Parker set down his glass and started to stand. Sit down, I said quietly, and something in my voice made him obey. Olivia was staring at the transcript, tears starting to form in her eyes. Jonathan, please, let me explain. Explain what? That you've been having an affair for 4 months? That you've been using our joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms where you could sleep with your boyfriend? That you just gave a toast praising me for being stupid enough to fund my own humiliation? The room erupted. Sarah was whispering frantically to Tom. Dave was staring at me with his mouth open. Gloria had snatched the transcript from Olivia's hands and was reading it with growing horror. This is what you think of me, Gloria hissed at her daughter. This is how you repay everything your family has given you. Olivia was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. Mom, it's not what it looks like. It's exactly what it looks like, I said. It's a woman who thought she was smarter than everyone else, and a man who thought he could take advantage of someone else's generosity without consequences. I turned to face the room, addressing our guests like I was giving a presentation at a construction meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the deception, but I wanted you all here as witnesses. For 10 years, I've worked 60-hour weeks to provide for my wife. I've paid for her business, her clothes, her car, her lifestyle. I've trusted her completely and never questioned her need for space or independence. I gestured toward Parker, who was now looking around the room like a trapped animal. What I didn't realize was that I was also paying for her boyfriend's apartment, his equipment, his meals, and his entertainment. I was funding my own betrayal. Olivia stood up suddenly, papers scattering to the floor. Stop it, Jonathan. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing myself? I laughed, and it wasn't a pleasant sound. Olivia, I'm not the one who's been sneaking around like a teenager. I'm not the one who just gave a speech about how wonderful it is to have a husband stupid enough to pay for everything while you screw someone else. Parker finally found his voice. Look, man, I never meant for it to go this far. Shut up, I said without looking at him. You had your chance to talk. I heard the recording. I turned back to Olivia. You want to know what's really embarrassing? What's embarrassing is that I still love you. Even after seeing those photos, even after hearing what you really think of me, part of me still loves the woman I married. Her face crumpled. Jonathan? But that woman doesn't exist anymore, does she? Maybe she never did? I looked around the room one more time. These people had come here expecting to celebrate. Instead, they were getting a front row seat to the destruction of everything I'd built over the past decade. Enjoy your dinner, I said. It's already paid for. I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. Oh, and Parker? You might want to start looking for a new apartment. The lease on your place expires next week, and I won't be renewing it. His face went white. What do you mean? I smiled for the first time all evening. I mean, I own the building, you stupid bastard. I bought it 6 months ago as an investment property. The silence that followed was beautiful. I walked out of Chez Laurent and got in my truck. Through the restaurant windows, I could see the chaos I'd left behind. Olivia was sobbing. Parker was arguing with someone. Gloria was gesticulating wildly. My phone started buzzing immediately. Text after text, call after call. I turned it off and drove home to my glass house, where I sat in my study and began planning the next phase of my wife's education. Because this wasn't over. This wasn't even close to over. This was just the foundation. The next morning, I was up at 5 a.m., just like always. The difference was that instead of heading to a job site, I had appointments with lawyers, accountants, and bank managers. Olivia never came home. Her car wasn't in the driveway, her side of the bed was still made, and her phone went straight to voicemail when I called. Not that I expected anything different. She was probably at Parker's place, crying on his shoulder and trying to figure out how to spin this disaster. What she didn't know was that Parker's shoulder wasn't going to be available much longer. My first stop was First National Bank, where I'd done business for 15 years. Margaret Chen, the branch manager, no relation to Olivia despite the name, had been handling my accounts since I started the company. Jonathan, she said, rising from behind her desk as I entered her office. I heard about last night. I'm so sorry. Small towns. News traveled faster than gossip, and gossip traveled at the speed of light. Thank you, Margaret. I need to make some changes to my accounts. Of course. What can I do for you? I handed her a folder containing copies of all the evidence Mike had gathered. I need to freeze all joint accounts immediately and transfer my business funds to a new account that only I have access to. She reviewed the documents, her expression growing more grim with each page. This is extensive. It gets worse. I need you to look at the charges on our joint credit cards for the past 6 months. Specifically, I need to know how much of our money was spent on Parker Hale's expenses. She pulled up the accounts on her computer, and we spent the next hour going through charges. Hotels, restaurants, gifts, even rent payments that I now realized were going to Parker's landlord, which was me, through one of my business accounts. The total comes to just over $47,000, Margaret said finally. I sat back in my chair. $47,000? That was more than most people in Millbrook made in a year. Can you freeze everything? Joint accounts, credit cards, everything with both our names on it? I can freeze the joint accounts, but the credit cards will require... I'm canceling them, all of them, and I want a complete accounting of where every dollar went, printed and notarized. Margaret nodded. It'll take a few hours, but I can have everything ready by this afternoon. Good. One more thing. I own the building at 247 Maple Street. I want the lease on the second-floor apartment terminated immediately. She looked uncomfortable. Jonathan, I understand you're angry, but there are legal procedures. The lease is month to month, and it's paid through my business account. I'm terminating it effective immediately and having the locks changed today. That's your right as the property owner. I stood up. Yes, it is. My next stop was the law office of Patricia Hendricks, the best divorce attorney in the county. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes who had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless when necessary. Mr. Reed, she said, gesturing for me to sit across from her desk. I've already heard some rumors about what happened last night. I imagine you have. I handed her another copy of Mike's evidence. I need to file for divorce, and I want to make sure I protect as many assets as possible. She spent 20 minutes reviewing the documents, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. This is very thorough, she said finally. Your investigator did excellent work. Connecticut is a no-fault state, so the adultery won't affect the divorce decree directly, but it will certainly influence how a judge views asset division, especially given the financial abuse documented here. Financial abuse? She used marital funds to conduct an extramarital affair. That's considered dissipation of marital assets, and courts take a very dim view of it. We can argue that she should be held responsible for reimbursing the marital estate for those expenses. I like the sound of that. What about the business? Reed Construction was established before your marriage, correct? Yes, but it's grown significantly since then. We'll need to have it evaluated, but given that she had no involvement in the day-to-day operations and that marital funds were used to support her business rather than yours, I think we can protect the majority of your company assets. She leaned forward. Jonathan, I have to ask, what are your goals here? Are you looking for a quick, quiet divorce, or do you want to make this as difficult as possible for her? I thought about Olivia's toast the night before, about Parker's recorded laughter, about 4 months of lies and deception and humiliation. I want justice, I said. I want consequences. Patricia smiled, and it wasn't entirely pleasant. Then we're going to get along just fine. By noon, I had set several wheels in motion. The joint accounts were frozen. Divorce papers were being prepared. Parker's eviction notice was being served. But I wasn't done. Not even close. I drove to Threads, Olivia's boutique on Main Street. It was a small storefront with big windows and expensive-looking displays. I'd never paid much attention to the business details. I just wrote the checks when Olivia said she needed money for inventory or rent or renovations. That had been a mistake. Sarah Martinez was behind the counter when I walked in, and she looked like she'd rather be anywhere else. Jonathan, she said nervously, I didn't expect to see you here. I bet you didn't. I looked around the shop, taking in the racks of designer clothes, the artfully arranged accessories, the general air of expensive femininity. Nice place. Must be doing well? We do okay. That's interesting, because according to the financial records I reviewed this morning, the shop has been losing money for 2 years. The only reason it's still open is because I've been covering the shortfall. Sarah's face went pale. I don't know anything about the finances. Olivia handles all that. I'm sure she does. I walked over to a rack of dresses, checking the price tags. $200 for a sundress, $400 for a cocktail dress. You must have very wealthy customers. We cater to a specific clientele. Like Parker Hale? She flinched. I don't know what you mean. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of Mike's photographs. Olivia and Parker in the boutique after hours, her hands all over him while he photographed her in various outfits. This was taken 3 weeks ago, Sarah, in your shop, on a Sunday when you were supposed to be closed. She stared at the photo, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Did you know? I asked quietly. Did you know what was going on and you just decided not to tell me? Jonathan, Because if you knew, that makes you complicit. That makes you part of the lie. Tears started forming in her eyes. She's my business partner. She's my friend. I couldn't. You couldn't what? Tell the truth? Warn me that my wife was using our money to buy lingerie for another man? Help me understand why she was always working late, but the books never showed any extra income? I put my phone away and looked around the shop again. Here's what's going to happen, Sarah. As of today, I'm calling in the loans I've made to keep this place afloat. That comes to about $38,000 plus interest. We don't have that kind of money. Then I guess you'll have to close. She was crying openly now. Please, Jonathan, I have kids. I need this job. You should have thought about that before you decided to help my wife cheat on me. I walked toward the door, then turned back. Oh, and Sarah, that picture I showed you? There are dozens more. If I were you, I'd start looking for a new business partner. This one's about to become very expensive to know. The afternoon was spent making more arrangements. I called a locksmith to change the locks on Parker's apartment. I called my insurance agent to remove Olivia from my policies. I even called the country club to cancel her membership. Each phone call felt like removing another support beam from the structure of our marriage. Soon, there would be nothing left but rubble. At 4 o'clock, my phone rang. It was Olivia. Jonathan, please, we need to talk. Her voice was hoarse, probably from crying. Part of me, the part that had loved her for 10 years, wanted to comfort her. But that part was getting smaller by the hour. Talk about what? About last night. About everything. I know you're angry, but I'm not angry, Olivia. I'm disappointed. Please, can we meet somewhere? Can we try to work this out? I almost laughed. Work it out? You mean like how you and Parker worked it out in his apartment, or in the hotel rooms I paid for? That's not fair. Fair? Now I did laugh. You want to talk about fair? Is it fair that I worked 60-hour weeks while you were screwing another man? Is it fair that I trusted you completely while you were lying to my face every single day? Is it fair that you used our anniversary party to humiliate me in front of everyone we know? I never meant for it to happen this way. How did you mean for it to happen, Olivia? Were you planning to leave me for him? Or were you just going to keep taking my money and his dick for as long as possible? She gasped. I'd never spoken to her like that before. Where are you staying? I asked. With a friend. Parker? Silence. That's what I thought. Well, you might want to find somewhere else. He's being evicted today. You can't do that. I own the building. I can do whatever I want. More silence, then. Jonathan, I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you. No, you don't. If you loved me, you never would have done this. If you loved me, you would have talked to me about whatever was missing in our marriage instead of running to another man. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, Olivia. You broke it. You broke us. And now you get to live with the consequences. I hung up and turned off my phone. That evening, I sat in my glass house, surrounded by the life we'd built together. Every piece of furniture, every decoration, every photograph on the walls represented a choice we'd made as a couple. But it had all been a lie. While I was building our future, she was tearing it down from the inside. I walked to the kitchen and opened a bottle of wine, an expensive Cabernet that Olivia had bought for a special occasion that never came. I poured myself a glass and stood at the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd planned to grow old together. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. Tonight, I was going to drink wine and plan the complete destruction of everything my wife held dear. Because if Olivia thought last night was embarrassing, she had no idea what was coming. 3 days after the anniversary party, I was sitting in my truck outside Murphy's Tavern when Parker Hale stumbled out into the parking lot. It was 2 p.m, and he was already drunk. Perfect. I'd been tracking his movements since the eviction. He'd been staying at the Millbrook Motor Inn, a rundown place on Route 7 that rented rooms by the week. His photography business was collapsing. Word had gotten around about his involvement in my marriage's destruction, and small-town clients didn't like hiring homewreckers to photograph their families. He looked like hell. His usually perfect hair was unkempt, his clothes were wrinkled, and he moved with the careful precision of someone trying not to fall down. I got out of my truck and walked over to him. Parker. He turned, swaying slightly. When he saw me, his face went through several emotions. Fear, anger, and finally resignation. Jonathan, come to gloat? Come to talk. He laughed bitterly. Talk? About what? About how you destroyed my life? About how you turned this whole town against me? I didn't turn anyone against you. I just told them the truth. The truth. He spat into the gravel. The truth is that your wife was miserable. The truth is that she needed someone who actually paid attention to her. I felt my hands clench into fists, but I kept my voice level. The truth is that you're a parasite who saw an opportunity and took it. Screw you. He started walking toward his car, a beat-up Honda that had seen better days. I wouldn't drive if I were you, I said. You're pretty drunk. I'll drive wherever I want. No, you won't. Something in my tone made him turn around. I was holding up his car keys, which I'd lifted from his pocket during our conversation. Give me my keys. I don't think so. He took a step toward me, and I could smell the whiskey on his breath. Give me my keys, or I'll... You'll what? Beat me up? Call the police? Tell them what, exactly? That the man whose wife you've been screwing won't let you drive drunk? He stopped, realizing his position. In a town like Millbrook, I had friends everywhere. Cops, judges, business owners. He had nobody. What do you want? He asked finally. I want you to understand something. This isn't over. What happened at the restaurant was just the beginning. I get it, okay? You won. You destroyed my business, got me evicted, turned everyone against me. What more do you want? I studied his face. 3 days ago, this man had been confident, cocky, sure that he was smarter than everyone around him. Now he looked like what he really was, a small-time grifter who'd gotten in over his head. I want you to leave town. What? Pack up your shit and leave Millbrook, tonight. He straightened up, trying to find some of his old swagger. You can't make me leave? This is America. I can live wherever I want. You're right. I can't make you leave. I pulled out my phone and showed him a video that Mike had taken the night before, Parker stumbling out of the motor inn with a bottle in his hand, pissing against a dumpster, then falling down in the parking lot. But I can make your life here very unpleasant. His face went white as he watched himself on the screen. I have hours of footage like this, I continued. You drinking and driving, you harassing women at the bar, you trying to break into your old apartment, all of it perfectly legal to record, all of it perfectly embarrassing to share. You bastard. I'm the bastard? You slept with my wife for 4 months and took $47,000 of my money to do it. I'm just returning the favor. I tossed his keys into the storm drain across the parking lot. Walk back to your motel, Parker. Pack your bags. And if I see you in this town tomorrow, I'll make sure that video gets sent to every photography client in Connecticut. He stared at the storm drain, then at me. What about Olivia? What if she wants to come with me? I almost felt sorry for him then. Almost. Olivia doesn't want to go anywhere with you. Olivia wants her old life back, the one where she gets to spend my money without consequences. She's not in love with you, Parker. She was just bored. The truth of that hit him like a physical blow. I could see it in his eyes, the realization that he'd been used just as much as I had. She told me she loved me, he said quietly. She told me the same thing. 3 nights ago, in fact. I turned and walked back to my truck, leaving him standing there in the parking lot like the broken man he was. That evening, I had dinner with my mother-in-law. Gloria had called that morning, asking if we could meet. She'd chosen a quiet restaurant in the next town over, away from Millbrook's gossip network. She was already seated when I arrived, looking elegant as always, but older somehow. The events of the past few days had aged her. "Jonathan," she said as I sat down. "Thank you for coming." "Of course." We ordered drinks, wine for her, beer for me, and sat in awkward silence for a few minutes. "I owe you an apology," she said finally. That surprised me. Gloria had never apologized for anything in the 10 years I'd known her. For what? For not seeing what was happening, for not stopping it. She took a sip of her wine. For not appreciating what kind of man you are. I didn't know what to say to that. I knew she was unhappy, Gloria continued. I could see it when she came to visit. But I thought it was just marriage, the normal ups and downs that every couple goes through. "Did you know about Parker?" "Not specifically, but I knew there was someone." She looked down at her hands. "A mother knows these things. I should have said something." "Why didn't you?" She was quiet for a long time. "Because I thought you weren't good enough for her." The honesty of it was brutal, but I appreciated it. I thought she deserved someone more sophisticated, someone from her world, with her background. I thought maybe if she found someone like that, she'd be happier. Even if it meant destroying our marriage? I didn't think about the marriage. I only thought about her happiness. She looked up at me. I was wrong. The waiter brought our food, but neither of us touched it. "She came to see me yesterday," Gloria said, crying, begging me to help her fix things with you. "What did you tell her?" "I told her that some things can't be fixed. I told her that she'd made her choice, and now she had to live with it." I was surprised. I'd expected Gloria to take her daughter's side, to try to broker some kind of reconciliation. "She's staying with her cousin in Hartford," Gloria continued. "She can't afford anywhere else now that you've frozen the accounts." "Good." Gloria raised an eyebrow. "That's rather harsh." "Is it? She spent $47,000 of our money on another man. She humiliated me in front of everyone we know. She destroyed 10 years of marriage for what turned out to be a fling with a loser who's already skipping town." "Parker's leaving?" "Tonight, if he's smart." Gloria nodded approvingly. "Good riddance." We ate in silence for a while, both of us processing the wreckage of the past few days. "What happens now?" she asked finally. "Now she learns what it's like to live without my support, financial or otherwise." "And you? What do you want?" I thought about that. What did I want? Revenge? Justice? Just to be left alone? "I want her to understand what she threw away," I said finally. "I want her to realize that actions have consequences, and I want to make sure she never has the opportunity to do this to anyone else." Gloria studied my face. "You're not done with her." "No, I'm not." She leaned back in her chair. "What can I do to help?" That really surprised me. "Help? Jonathan, you've been a good husband to my daughter. You've provided for her, supported her dreams, and treated her with respect. She repaid that by betraying you in the most humiliating way possible." Gloria's voice hardened. "She needs to learn that there are consequences for that kind of behavior." I looked at this woman who had never liked me, never thought I was good enough for her daughter, and realized that she was offering to help me destroy everything Olivia had left. "What did you have in mind?" I asked. She smiled, and for the first time I understood where Olivia had gotten her ruthless streak. "Leave that to me," Gloria said. I have some ideas. By the time I got home that night, Parker's Honda was gone from the Motor Inn parking lot. One problem solved. But as I sat in my study, looking at the divorce papers Patricia had prepared, I realized that Parker had been the easy target. He was a stranger, a nobody, a man with no real connections or power in Millbrook. Olivia was different. Olivia had friends, family, a business, a reputation. Destroying her was going to take more than just cutting off her money and embarrassing her at a party. It was going to take precision, planning, and a level of cruelty that I wasn't sure I possessed. But I was about to find out. Because tomorrow I was going to start taking apart my wife's life piece by piece, and I wasn't going to stop until there was nothing left but ashes. The foundation had been poured, the demolition had begun. Now it was time to bring down the whole damn building. 2 weeks later, Olivia came home. I was in my study when I heard her key in the front door. I'd been expecting this. Gloria had called to warn me that her daughter was planning some kind of desperate reconciliation attempt. "Jonathan?" Her voice echoed through the glass house. "Are you here?" I didn't answer. I wanted to see what she'd do, how she'd approach this. I heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floors as she moved through the house. She was in the kitchen now, probably noticing that I'd removed her pictures from the refrigerator. Now the living room, where the wedding photos had been taken down and stored in boxes. Finally, she appeared in the doorway of my study. She looked terrible. Her usually perfect hair was limp and unwashed. She'd lost weight, and not in a good way. She looked gaunt, hollow-eyed. Her clothes were wrinkled, and I could smell cigarettes on her, which was new. "Hi," she said softly. "Olivia." "Can we talk?" I gestured to the chair across from my desk. She sat down carefully, like she was afraid sudden movements might spook me. "You look like hell," I said. She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I feel like hell." "Good." That made her flinch. "Jonathan, I know you're angry." "I'm not angry anymore. Anger is what I felt 2 weeks ago. This is something else." "What is it?" I leaned back in my chair, studying her. "Disappointment, disgust, a complete absence of respect for the person you've become." Tears started forming in her eyes. "I made a mistake." "You made a choice. Every day for 4 months, you made the choice to lie to me, steal from me, and humiliate me. That's not a mistake. That's a character defect." She was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Jonathan. I know I hurt you, but I love you. I've always loved you." "No, you haven't. If you loved me, you never would have done this. People make mistakes when they're unhappy." "Were you unhappy?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "Were you unhappy in our marriage? Because if you were, you never told me. You never said you wanted counseling, or that something was missing, or that you needed something different. You just started sleeping with someone else and using my money to pay for it." She flinched at the crude language. "I didn't know how to talk to you about it." "About what? About feeling invisible? About feeling like you saw me as just another expense in your budget?" I stared at her. "Invisible? I bought you a boutique. I bought you this house. I bought you everything you ever asked for. That's not the same as seeing me." "And Parker saw you?" She was quiet for a long moment. "He made me feel beautiful, desired, like I was worth paying attention to." "He made you feel like a fool. He was using you, Olivia. He told everyone in Murphy's Tavern that you were his sugar mama. He bragged about how stupid your husband was for paying his bills." "That's not true." I pulled out my phone and played Mike's recording. Parker's voice filled the room, laughing about his perfect arrangement, joking about how clueless I was. Olivia's face crumpled as she listened to her lover's real opinion of their relationship. "He's gone," I said when the recording ended. "Left town the day after I confronted him. Didn't even say goodbye to you, did he?" She shook her head, unable to speak. "So now you're here, hoping I'll take you back. Hoping we can just pretend the last 4 months never happened. We could try counseling." "No. Please, Jonathan. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me a chance to make this right." I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the neighborhood where we'd planned to grow old together. "Do you know what I've been doing for the past 2 weeks, Olivia?" "The divorce?" "Besides the divorce, do you know what else I've been doing?" She shook her head. "I've been learning things. About you, about our marriage, about the person you really are." I turned back to face her. "Did you know that Sarah knew about the affair from the beginning? She helped you cover for it, lied to me when I called the shop looking for you." Olivia's eyes widened. "She told you that?" "She told me a lot of things. After I called in the loans that were keeping threads afloat, she became very talkative. Apparently you and Parker weren't exactly discreet. Half the town knew what was going on. Jonathan? Your cousin in Hartford? The one you've been staying with? She called me yesterday. Wants to know when you're going to start paying rent, since you've been eating her food and using her utilities for 2 weeks without contributing anything. Olivia looked stricken. She said I could stay as long as I needed. That was before she found out why you needed a place to stay. Apparently, adultery runs in your family, and she doesn't want to be associated with it. I walked back to my desk and sat down. Even your mother has cut you off. Did you know that? She's not taking your calls anymore. That's not possible. She's my mother. She's also a woman who spent 40 years building a reputation in this community. She's not going to let you destroy that. Olivia was sobbing now, great heaving sobs that shook her whole body. What do you want from me? What do I have to do to make this right? You can't make it right. That's the point. There has to be something. There is something. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a document. Sign this. She took the paper with shaking hands. What is it? A confession. A detailed admission of your affair, the money you stole, and the lies you told. Sign it, and I'll give you enough money to start over somewhere else. She read through the document, her face growing paler with each paragraph. This would destroy me. If anyone saw this, that's the idea. You want me to admit to everything? Publicly? I want you to take responsibility for what you did. For once in your life, I want you to face consequences. She set the paper down on the desk. And if I don't sign it, then you leave here with nothing. No money, no support, no help from me or your family. You figure out how to survive on your own. She stared at the confession for a long time. How much money? Enough to get an apartment somewhere far from here and live modestly for about 6 months. After that, you're on your own. And if I sign this, you'll leave me alone? I'll leave you alone. She picked up the pen with trembling fingers. I loved you, Jonathan. I really did. I know you think you did. She signed the confession, her signature shaky but legible. I took the document and put it back in my desk drawer. There's a cashier's check on the kitchen counter. $10,000. That's all you get. She stood up slowly. What happens now? Now you leave. Tonight. And you don't come back. She walked to the door, then turned back. Will you ever forgive me? I looked at this woman who had been my wife, my partner, my best friend for 10 years, the woman who had destroyed everything we'd built together for a few months of excitement with a man who didn't even respect her. No, I said. I don't think I will. After she left, I sat in my study for a long time, thinking about the past 2 weeks, about Parker's humiliation and departure, about Sarah's betrayal and the collapse of the boutique, about Gloria's surprising loyalty and Olivia's final defeat. It should have felt like victory. I'd gotten my revenge, exposed the truth, and made sure everyone involved faced consequences for their actions. But mostly, I just felt empty. The next morning, I was having coffee in my kitchen when I heard cars pulling into my driveway. I looked out the window and saw 3 vehicles, Mike's truck, Dave's SUV, and Tom Martinez's sedan. My friends had come to check on me. I opened the front door as they approached. Mike was carrying a case of beer, Dave had a bag from the deli, and Tom was holding what looked like a bottle of whiskey. Figured you might want some company, Mike said. And some real food, Dave added. You look like you haven't eaten in days. We sat in my living room, eating sandwiches and drinking beer, not talking about what had happened, but not avoiding it either. Parker's gone, Tom said eventually. Saw him loading his car at the motor inn 2 weeks ago. Haven't seen him since. Good riddance, Dave muttered. Sarah's looking for a new job, Tom continued. The boutique's closing at the end of the month. I nodded. I figured it would. What about you? Mike asked. What's next? I looked around the glass house at the life I'd built and defended, and ultimately lost anyway. I'm thinking about selling this place, I said, starting over somewhere else. You don't have to do that, Dave said. This is your home. No, I said. This was our home. Now it's just a house full of bad memories. We drank in silence for a while, 3 middle-aged men sitting in the wreckage of what used to be a marriage. You did the right thing, Mike said finally. What she did to you, it wasn't right. She needed to face consequences. Did she, though? I asked. Or did I just become the kind of man who destroys people when they hurt me? She destroyed herself, Tom said. You just made sure everyone could see it. Maybe he was right. Maybe I'd been justified in everything I'd done. Maybe Olivia and Parker and Sarah had gotten exactly what they deserved. But sitting there in my glass house, surrounded by friends who were trying to help me pick up the pieces, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost something important in the process of getting my revenge, something I might never get back. 3 months later, I sold the house and moved to North Carolina, where I started a new construction company and tried to build a new life. I never saw Olivia again, but I heard through Gloria that she'd moved to California and was working as a waitress in some beach town, still trying to figure out how to survive without someone else paying her bills. Parker, according to Mike's sources, had ended up in Florida, doing wedding photography for tourists and living in a trailer park. Sarah found work at a department store in Hartford and never spoke to any of us again. And me? I learned to live with what I'd done, with the choices I'd made and the man I'd become when someone I loved betrayed me. I learned that revenge, even when it's justified, even when it's perfectly executed, doesn't actually fix anything. It just makes sure everyone else is as broken as you are. But sometimes, when you're sitting in the ruins of everything you thought you knew about your life, that's enough. Sometimes making sure there are consequences is all you can do, and sometimes that has to be justice enough.